everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be talking about rejection. DClinPsy season is officially over, which means that the rejections have happened. Now, even if you were offered a place this year, you were probably rejected. Rejection, I've realised, is a massive part of this career journey. I'm going to speak about my experience with rejection, the kind of mindset that's helped me, and also the practical tips that have helped me move from rejection to success. So let's get into it. Now, throughout my life, I have been very aware of rejection, and that comes from my background in kind of acting, singing and dancing and going for auditions from a very young age. And I'm not sure if that's the same for everyone, whether at that young age they would also be faced with rejection so openly. But I think that really helped me in moving towards a career in psychology and then realising how much rejection actually comes before getting into the profession. So fast forward to when I graduated from my undergrad psychology degree. I studied at Sussex, if you were wondering. That's when you start to look for jobs. This is where rejection really got to me, I think, because I had started watching Psychologist on YouTube and knew that an AP role was kind of like the golden standard for a psychology graduate job, but I didn't realise how hard it was. And if you've been around here for long enough, then you will know I actually vlogged a lot of my journey to becoming an assistant psychologist. So I'll link the vlogs up here somewhere. But I actually started applying for AP posts before I had even graduated. Fast forward to graduation. I remember looking for jobs a few weeks before graduating from my degree because I had this sense of like looming anxiety at the fact that I was graduating. I would no longer have university, and then what? That's when I really stumbled across Psychologist, and Abdi's video really helped me in gaining that perspective into how difficult it is to get an AP role. So I thought, okay, I better get started early. That didn't help me in the slightest. I then moved back home from Brighton and found myself with no job, no money, while all of my other friends had these graduate schemes and were set up pretty much for the next year and a half. And that was very daunting. So I kept applying and applying and applying to AP posts, and I got rejected about 20 times before even getting an interview. And that hurts because I thought that on paper I was a great candidate. I did a placement year, I worked as a healthcare assistant during my undergrad, I also worked as a personal assistant for someone with additional needs during my undergrad, and yet 6 months later, 20 applications down the line, I still hadn't had an interview. No one even wanted to give me the time of day to meet me. I remember thinking, like, what is the point? They tell you, go to uni, work hard, get your work experience through a part-time job and you'll be fine after graduating. And here I was, twiddling my thumbs, writing application after application and getting nowhere. I remember just feeling so worthless, and I think that's kind of where the change in mindset has to come in. You are not valued just on your career. You have so many other parts to your life, to your personality, that isn't part of psychology. And when you realise that your value doesn't solely rely on this prospective job, it makes things so much easier, especially in terms of accepting rejection. Moving forward to when I actually got some interviews. So after my 20 odd applications, the first one I did was an absolute shambles. For some reason, despite watching all of Abdi's videos, I didn't listen to him. Did I reflect? No, I did not. So obviously I got rejected, and there were other things that I hadn't fully practiced. I had no idea what to expect in an AP interview, and you know what? It's fine. But I also think the pressure of thinking, oh my gosh, this is my one chance, and then getting rejected was again very hard. And I've realised throughout my career that the way I deal with rejection a lot of times is to deny it. I don't end up like turning up to the job like Monday at 9 AM, no. But it will take me a couple of days to accept the fact that I've been rejected and actually listen to feedback. So when I got the call telling me that I had been rejected, I didn't really utilise the phone call in the best way as I probably should have, because I was in that like denial mode of like, I don't want to hear it, like, you've rejected me, get out of my face, which I also think is very normal. Like, everyone reacts to rejection in very different ways, and that's okay. Some people bounce back super quickly, some people go into denial like me, and some people have to take a few days off and like cry for a little bit, which again is also me, but that's okay too. But I think after that first interview, it hit me really hard, because I was like, I can't write another 20 applications to just be rejected again. Like, I didn't know what to do. I felt so hopeless at this point. And then I got my second interview, and I also got rejected for that. That interview went a bit better, and I was reflective, and I felt like it had gone well. And so then that rejection was very different, because in this scenario, I felt like I didn't deserve to be rejected. I felt like I deserved that place. And also, this was my second interview. So again, the hopelessness increased as well. And when I did my third and final interview, I remember thinking beforehand, like, after this, I need to take a break. Any more rejection is actually going to kill me. Because while I have this mindset shift now of like, I shouldn't have all my value in my job, back then I really did, because I was working in a job which, yeah, I enjoyed, but I didn't see my future in that. I was basically having a life crisis moment where I was thinking about having to support like my family in the future. Like, how would I afford this if I can't even get an AP post? How will I ever become a clinical psychologist? I felt so stupid as well, because I felt massively like an imposter going for these interviews. And then when I got rejected, I then thought, right, well, of course I'm an imposter. Like, they found me out. I am actually really dumb. And that's not the case. Like, it just is super duper competitive. Going into that third interview, I was like, if I get rejected, you know what, it's fine. Like, I've heard it 2 times before. I'll probably hear it again. But I need to take a break from psychology for at least a month. And that's also a very important thing that I've learned about rejection, is you need to know when to call it quits for a little bit, because giving myself that allowance to have a break after this next interview actually kind of made me more calm about the actual interview itself, and I think that helped. It's funny how rejection works, because the more and more you get rejected, it's kind of like what you expect, and I do wonder how much that impacts your performance in interviews when you do lose hope and you do start believing in the fact that you will always be rejected. It's quite interesting to me. That was my experience with rejection in terms of my assistant psychologist role. Then roll on to the doctorate. I got a place this year, so I haven't really felt the full force of DClinPsy rejection, because I know people go through it year after year after year, but I also think I have learned a lot from being rejected by other courses and also my AP experience. So this year I applied to 4 courses like everyone, but I actually got rejected from 2 of them outright. I did the test for one and then got rejected, and then I was on the reserve for Essex and then actually got a place. This kind of rejection was very different for me, because my application this year was meant to be a practice run. I was not expecting much from it at all, and so when I got rejected, I was kind of like, oh, it's okay. But as the rejections came through, I started to feel worthless again. It always goes back to that feeling of being worthless for me. The one rejection that hit me the hardest was for the course where I did the selection test, and I actually got a very good mark, which I thought meant that you would get an interview, but I didn't, and I got rejected. And that just really hurt, because I worked so hard for those selection tests, and I'm not good at stats at all. It's not my forte. I do not enjoy doing it, but I worked my butt off. So then to be rejected, I was just like, this system is so flawed. Like, how can you do that to people when you have worked so hard? Like, there's no rhyme or reason. This isn't a fair game. And I know life isn't fair, but that's how I felt at the time. That bit of rejection made me feel so much mistrust for the systems within the psychology profession. I think everyone's kind of gone through that. We all know the system is flawed, and then I know that I haven't had to go through DClinPsy season more than once, so my experience of rejection is very different to someone else's. The Clinical Psychology Community UK made a really good video about her experience of applying to the doctorate, and she's had to face multiple rejections, but I think she has shown so much perseverance and so much resilience that I'm just in awe. Now, in terms of mindset, the most important thing for me was to separate my own value from my job. And as a Christian, I know that my value should come from God, and that's all that should matter. But during this season of my life where I was getting rejected so much, and I was very kind of focused on applying to jobs and even the doctorate, I completely forgot about the other facets of my personality, my life, my strengths. I completely forgot about that. I forgot that actually before being a psychologist, I'm a human and I've got other things that give me value. And you also have to remember that by the end of the day, like, your job might not always be there, but your friends and your family will be. And I think value that over any job that you have, because when you place all your value in your job, that's when rejection hits you hard, because jobs are so turbulent and even the application process is so chaotic that if you place all of your value in that, it's so detrimental to your mental health and your self-worth. I guess this is coming from my own narrative of rejection means worthlessness. Now, I would be very interested to hear about what rejection means for you guys, because I think for me, it says something about where I place my value. So I think that was the most helpful mindset shift for me. But also thinking about how we're all on our own journeys. And I know that is so cliche. I personally think that every single experience that I've had in my life has put me in a great position for where I am today. I think it also helps that I have the mentality of everything happens for a reason, and I know, cheese, but it's true. So just try to remember that everything you're experiencing, even in the rejections, they're very formative and they're very valuable to you and your journey. And also another thing that helped me was to be productive in the waiting. So while you're waiting for an interview, while you're waiting for that next job, what can you be doing in that present moment that will benefit you and your journey? Let's think about practical things that you can do. So what are some other jobs that you could do in the meanwhile to broaden your experience? Yes, it may not be the role that you want yet, but what will help? What about writing something? What about doing some research? What could you do that will benefit you while you're waiting? If you haven't read The Power of Now, I really recommend that you read it. The one thing that I took away from that book, which I think is so important, is the fact that all we have is the present moment, now. All we have is now. Everything in the future and the past it's not what we have control over, and it's not where we're at. So what can you do in this present moment that will truly help you and make a difference? So I guess this really nicely leads on to some of the practical tips for dealing with rejection. Now, I think the main thing with moving from rejection to success is thinking about the things that went wrong and the things that went well. So spending some time to reflect, but also getting that feedback from people. So if it's the fact that you're being rejected at the point of applications, have you got someone else to read your application for you and give you some critique? Do you have anyone that you work with who will be willing to read your applications? Is there a mentoring scheme like the psychology platform that you could sign up to so that someone else can read your application? Because that is going to get you from rejection to success. In the same way, if it's an interview, then be sure to ask for feedback. And if you're like me, where you kind of like go into denial mode, then get over it. You need to get that feedback in order to progress, and all of that feedback is gold. Another way that you can get feedback from your interview is maybe doing a mock interview with someone and getting feedback from them, because in that way you know how to improve. I think the main thing here is that when you're rejected, something hasn't gone right. So whether that be you haven't been reflective enough, or you haven't linked it to the wider picture, or you were too nervous, how can you fix each of those things? But also I think it's very important to know when to take a break, because there's no point in applying and getting rejected and rejected if you're just not getting anywhere. So take a break, because sometimes you kind of get in your own head and you get frustrated with the application process or the interview process, and that shows. So just take a step back for a moment, take some time to rest, and restart again with a fresh set of eyes. Another thing which you need to do is to stop the negative talk. Stop being mean to yourself. Don't say anything to yourself that you wouldn't say to anyone else, because the voice that we hear the most, above our family, above our partners, above our friends, is our own voice. And if we keep saying to ourselves, you're stupid, you're not worthy, you can't do it, you've been rejected so many times, what that does to your confidence is so unhealthy and so if you do feel that voice creeping in, try and catch it as soon as you can and replace it with a positive thing about yourself. Or if the thought slips out, then try and think about something that you've done well or that is positive and try and like counterbalance in that way. I found that really helps. I think the most important here is for you to remember that rejection happens to everyone. Now, I know that that doesn't make it any easier, but hopefully it gives you some comfort in allowing you to know it's not that you're not good enough. It's just the fact that this is a very competitive profession, but you just have to keep going. Use the rejection to push you towards success through reflecting and through using it as a learning experience. Let's not make rejection redundant. Don't make it the thing that makes you quit. Make it the thing that motivates you to succeed. So I hope that you guys are all okay. Let's have a chat down below. I would love to know whether you got rejected this year or have been accepted. I feel like the more we hear about rejections, the better, because then it can put into perspective what field we're actually in. So yeah, please give this video a like if you liked it and subscribe for more content like this. And until next time guys, I'll see you later. Bye.